The silence in the private room was suffocating. Amy could hear nothing but the rapid beat of her own heart as it echoed in her ears, drowning out reason and clarity. Brick stood over her like an unmovable wall of power, his presence swallowing every ounce of air. His eyes pinned her in place, dark, commanding, laced with a danger she could almost touch. He was not a man one defied. He was the kind of man mothers whispered warnings about, the kind who built empires out of fear, the kind who ruled a city like North Hill with quiet violence. Amy had seen him from afar in corporate meetings, striding into boardrooms with the air of a king, a man even seasoned CEOs bowed their heads to. Never in her life had she imagined she would be pressed against a wall by him, his hand gripping her as though she belonged to him. She tried to find her voice, but when she opened her mouth, nothing came out. Brick tilted his head, his gaze lowering to her lips, then lifting back to her eyes. "You think I'm a man you can use for your games, woman?" His voice was low, measured, but each word was laced with an edge sharp enough to slice through bone. "Do you think you can stand in my city and call me your husband, just to save face before your enemies, and then walk away as if nothing happened?" Amy's knees threatened to give way. She had been brave downstairs, bold even, when she took his hand in the club. It had been instinct, a desperate, reckless move. But bravery melted into fear now, as the weight of her choice came crashing down on her. "I didn't know it was you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Brick leaned closer, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath grazing her skin. His grip tightened on her chin, forcing her to look directly into his eyes. "You should have known," he said. "Every soul in this city knows me. Even in the shadows, my presence cannot be mistaken. And yet, you dared to call me something no one else has ever dared." "Hubby." The word rolled off his tongue with a mocking tone, but there was a strange darkness in his eyes, something that looked like curiosity beneath the fury. Amy's lips trembled. She tried to shake her head, but his grip made it impossible. "I didn't mean." He silenced her with a finger pressed firmly against her lips. "Don't lie to me," he whispered, his voice rough, dangerous, intoxicating. "Do you know what happens to liars in my world?" Her body went rigid. She knew his reputation. Brick was not merely a businessman. He was a man whose name carried weight in every corner of North Hill. Deals were made and broken at the mention of him. Rivals disappeared overnight. Secrets never stayed hidden from his grasp. Her mind flashed to the one secret she had vowed to protect with her life, her children. 6 small faces, innocent and full of life, hidden from the world and especially from men like him. She couldn't let him discover them. She couldn't let him know. She tried to turn her face away, but his hold was iron. "Please," she managed, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean to involve you. Let me go. I'll leave quietly." Brick studied her for a long moment. His silence was heavier than any threat, and his stare bore into her until she felt naked under its weight. Then slowly he smirked. It wasn't warmth. It was cold amusement, a predator enjoying the panic of its prey. "Leave." His voice was a growl, low and dangerous. "Do you think the world outside this door will forget? Do you think those vultures downstairs didn't see you holding my hand? Do you think they won't carry the story across every corner of the city by sunrise?" Amy's stomach dropped. "They saw," he continued, his words deliberate, his tone merciless. "They saw you call me your husband, and now the city will never unsee it. You've tied yourself to me, Amy. Whether you meant it or not, the world already believes you are mine." Her lips parted in shock, but no words came. Brick finally released her chin, though the ghost of his touch lingered like fire. He stepped back a little, but his aura did not retreat. He was still everywhere, his shadow, his dominance, his command. Amy stumbled slightly, pressing her back against the wall as if to put distance between them. She needed space, air, anything to breathe again. Brick's eyes trailed over her, sharp and assessing, as though he was peeling back her layers one by one. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said, "but hear me well. You don't walk away from me. Not after tonight. You wanted a husband before them? You have one now. You wanted to use my name? Then carry it like a crown or a curse. The choice isn't yours anymore. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Rage warred with fear inside her chest. She had lived 6 years surviving betrayal, heartbreak, and humiliation. She had built her life from ashes. And now this man, this dangerous man, dared to chain her with words spoken in desperation. You can't control me, she whispered fiercely, though her voice wavered. Brick's smirk deepened, cruel and confident. Watch me. He turned then, his broad shoulders commanding the room even as he moved toward the door. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. His words had already shackled her. His dominance already etched into her soul. Amy's breath trembled as she pressed a hand against her chest, willing her heart to steady. Brick paused at the door, his voice drifting back to her, calm yet powerful. From this night forward, Amy, the world will see you as mine. And when the world believes it, so shall you. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving her alone. Amy slid down the wall, her body shaking as tears filled her eyes. Hatred burned in her chest, but beneath it was something far more dangerous. Fear. Not fear of what the world would say, not fear of Callan or Joan. Fear of Brick. Fear of the man who had just claimed her before she even understood what she had unleashed. Thus, the dangerous dance between Amy and Brick had begun. This was only the beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over North Hill, gilding the city in a haze of gold. To most, the day was just beginning. The hum of cars, the chatter of street vendors, the distant toll of church bells announcing life's endless routine. But for Amy, the dawn brought nothing but dread. She hadn't slept a single moment after leaving Brick's shadow-filled presence the night before. Her skin still burned from the heat of his touch, her lips haunted by the ghost of his kiss, her mind trapped in the echo of his words. From this night forward, the world will see you as mine. Every hour that passed deepened the weight of his threat. Amy moved through her modest apartment with careful steps, her robe cinched tightly at the waist. The smell of warm porridge filled the air, mingling with the faint sound of children's laughter from the back room. Her gaze softened, the iron mask of her fear momentarily melting. 6 small faces, 6 precious reasons to keep fighting. She paused at the doorframe of the bedroom, watching them. The twins, Mark and Matthew, were already at it, chasing each other around the room with toy cars clutched in their tiny fists. Her eldest, Sarah, sat cross-legged on the bed, reading aloud to the youngest 3, who hung on her every word. The innocence in their laughter wrapped itself around Amy's heart like a bomb. For them, she would endure anything. For them, she would even face Brick. But the danger was real now, and closer than ever. If Brick discovered them, her carefully hidden world would unravel. Breakfast, Amy called softly. 6 pairs of eyes lit up instantly. Feet pattered across the wooden floor as the children hurried into the small kitchen, their voices filling the air with a chorus of joy. Amy served them quickly, her hands practiced and steady, even as her heart trembled beneath the surface. "Mommy, are we going to the park today?" Sarah asked, her dark eyes shining. Amy forced a smile. "Yes, after school. If you all behave." The cheer that followed was loud enough to rattle the windows. But beneath that smile, Amy's thoughts were dark. What if Brick's men were already watching? What if last night had sealed their fate? Her phone buzzed on the counter. Amy froze. The screen lit up with a single message. "Good morning, wife. Brick." Her hand trembled as she set the phone back down. The children, thankfully, were too absorbed in their breakfast to notice her sudden stillness. He was already tightening his hold. Brick sat in the back of his black sedan, the city sprawling outside the tinted windows. His suit was immaculate, his posture relaxed, but his mind was far from calm. He held his phone loosely in his hand, studying the single message he'd sent. Her silence was telling. She hadn't replied. She was afraid. Good. Brick thrived on fear. It was the currency of power, the silent chain that kept enemies obedient and allies loyal. But with Amy, fear was not enough. She intrigued him in a way that unsettled him. He had seen countless women, desperate, cunning, deceitful, but none had ever dared to look him in the eye in public and call him husband. She had done it out of desperation, yes, but desperation revealed truth. And truth, he had learned, was far more valuable than the masks people wore. He would peel her apart layer by layer until every secret she guarded was his. "Sir," Brett's voice came from the front seat. "Do we proceed with the meeting at East Hill?" Brick's gaze drifted to the city skyline. "Postpone it." Brett hesitated, surprised. "But the investors." "I said postpone." Brick's tone brooked no argument. Brett swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." Brick leaned back, his mind already returning to Amy. Something about her screamed unfinished business. 6 years ago, he remembered her briefly, faintly, as the woman who had crossed his path in a whirlwind of passion and then vanished without explanation. He hadn't cared then. But now, standing before him once again, her eyes full of fire and fear, she was a puzzle, and Brick despised puzzles left unsolved. By afternoon, Amy's carefully balanced world began to tremble. At the park, she spread a blanket beneath a large tree, watching as the children ran toward the swings and slides. Their laughter filled the air, blending with the sound of other families enjoying the rare warmth of the day. For a moment, Amy allowed herself to breathe, to pretend life was normal. But normal shattered the moment she saw them. 2 black-suited men leaned casually against a nearby bench, their eyes hidden by dark sunglasses. They didn't move, didn't speak, but their presence screamed of surveillance. Amy's chest tightened. "Brick!" He was already watching. She pulled her phone from her bag, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Leave me alone. I don't belong to you." The reply came within seconds. "You belong to me the moment you called me husband. Deny it all you want. My men will make sure you never forget it." Her hands shook. She shoved the phone back into her bag before her children noticed, forcing another smile as they came running back, cheeks flushed from play. "Mommy, push me on the swing." Matthew squealed. Amy's heart ached. She nodded, rising to her feet. "Of course, baby." But as she walked toward the swings, she felt the eyes of Brick's men tracking her every move. That evening, when the children were finally asleep, Amy sat in the dim glow of the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of untouched tea. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m. My driver will pick you up. Don't be late." Brick. Her stomach twisted. Refusal wasn't an option. Not with his men watching. Not with her children's safety hanging in the balance. She pressed a trembling hand to her face, tears threatening to spill. 6 years she had fought to build her life, to raise her children in peace. 6 years she had sworn never to let betrayal touch her again. And now, with one reckless word, hubby, she had chained herself to the most powerful man in the city. Brick poured himself a glass of whiskey in his penthouse suite, the city lights glittering far below. He swirled the amber liquid slowly, his thoughts consumed by her. Tomorrow she would come. She had no choice. And when she did, he would begin unraveling the secrets she so desperately tried to protect. He smirked faintly, lifting the glass to his lips. "The game has only just begun, wife." The next evening came with the weight of inevitability. Amy stood in front of her mirror, staring at her reflection. She had chosen a simple black dress, modest yet elegant, the kind that concealed rather than revealed. Her fingers lingered on the fabric as if it might shield her from what awaited. But no dress, no mask, no prayer could protect her from Brick. Her heart thundered. She could hear the faint sound of her children's laughter echoing from the other room. Sarah helping the twins with a puzzle while the little ones squabbled over a toy. Their voices softened the edges of her fear, grounding her. She leaned against the dresser, whispering to herself, "For them. I'll face him for them." A knock at the door jolted her. It wasn't sharp or impatient, but heavy, deliberate, the kind of knock that said whoever stood outside already owned the space. She opened it to find a driver dressed in crisp black, his posture stiff with discipline. His eyes never met hers. "Miss Amy," he said, his tone clipped, Mr. Brick is waiting. Her stomach twisted. She kissed each of her children goodnight, lingering on every forehead as though it were a goodbye, before stepping outside. The night air was cool, but it did little to ease the heat of dread burning within her. A black sedan waited at the curb, sleek and ominous. She slid inside, the leather seats swallowing her whole, and the car pulled away in silence. The city blurred past the windows, neon lights streaking across the glass. Amy's thoughts spiraled. What did he want from her? Why couldn't he just let her go? 6 years she had survived on her own, raising 6 children, carrying burdens no one else knew, and now this man threatened to unravel everything. The car stopped in front of a towering building, Brick's private residence, a fortress of glass and steel that loomed over North Hill like a crown. The driver stepped out, opening her door with silent precision. "Mr. Brick is expecting you." Amy's legs felt like stone as she followed him into the building. The lobby alone was intimidating, marble floors polished to a mirror's shine, chandeliers dripping with light, the faint hum of power vibrating in the air. Men in dark suits watched from the shadows, their eyes sharp, their silence deafening. The elevator ride was long, each floor passing like a heartbeat. When the doors opened, she stepped into a penthouse that could have belonged to a king. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city spread beneath them, glowing like stars trapped in glass. The air smelled faintly of cedar and smoke, masculine and commanding. And there he was. Brick stood near the windows, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of whiskey. He didn't turn as she entered. He didn't need to. His presence filled the space, commanding it, bending it around him. "You came," he said at last, his voice deep, resonant. Amy swallowed hard. "I didn't have a choice." Brick finally turned, his eyes locking onto hers. They were dark, endless, a storm she couldn't look away from. His lips curved faintly. Not a smile, but something sharper, something that cut. "There's always a choice," he murmured. "But you made the right one." Her fists clenched at her sides. "What do you want from me?" He took a slow sip of his drink before setting it down on a nearby table. Then he crossed the room with the steady grace of a predator, each step deliberate. He stopped mere inches away, his height dwarfing her, his aura pressing down until her knees threatened to give. "What I want," he said softly, "is truth." Amy's breath caught. Brick tilted his head, studying her face as though it were a map hiding secrets. "6 years ago you disappeared. No calls, no trace, nothing. And now you reappear, calling me husband in front of half the city. Tell me, Amy, what have you been hiding?" Her pulse quickened. She tried to steady her voice. "Nothing. I left because I had to. My life had nothing to do with you." "Lies," he snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. She winced but didn't pull away. His grip was firm, unyielding, but not cruel, controlled, as though he knew exactly how much pressure to apply to remind her of his dominance. "Don't test me," he warned. "I can smell secrets, and you reek of them." Amy forced herself to meet his gaze. "Even if I had secrets, they're mine. You have no right to them." Brick leaned closer, so close his breath brushed her skin. "You gave me that right the moment you called me husband. You think the world will see it as a slip of the tongue? No, they see it as a bond. And I intend to make it true." Her eyes widened. "You're insane." "Perhaps." His lips brushed against her ear, his voice dropping to a whisper that made her shiver. "But in this city, insanity rules. And I am the king of it." He pulled back suddenly, releasing her wrist. She stumbled slightly, catching herself on the edge of a table. Brick studied her for a long moment, then spoke with quiet authority. "You will attend the gala tomorrow night. On my arm." Her mouth fell open. "What? No, I can't." "You will." His tone was absolute. "The city already whispers. Tomorrow they will see. And when they see, they will know." Amy's chest tightened. "Why me? You could have anyone. Any woman would throw herself at your feet. Why force this on me?" Brick's gaze softened for the briefest moment, though his expression remained unreadable. Because you're the only one who ever walked away. The words struck her like lightning. She blinked, stunned, searching his face for truth, but his eyes gave nothing away. Before she could respond, the sound of a door opening echoed through the penthouse. Brett stepped inside, his expression tight with unease. "Sir," he said, bowing slightly, "there's been a development." Brick didn't turn, his eyes still fixed on Amy. "Speak." Brett hesitated. "Callan and Joan. They've been asking questions. About her." His glance flicked toward Amy, then back to Brick. "They know she left with you last night." Amy's blood ran cold. Brick's jaw tightened. Of course they did. Vultures never miss the scent of blood. He turned to Amy, his eyes narrowing. "You see, wife? Your enemies are watching. And if you think I'll let them devour you, you're mistaken. They will learn what it means to covet what belongs to me." Amy's lips parted, but no words came. Brick turned back to Brett, his voice sharp. "Double security. Make sure the gala is airtight. No one touches her." "Yes, sir." Brett bowed again and exited swiftly. The room fell silent once more, the weight of Brick's words pressing heavily on Amy. She shook her head slowly, fear and anger swirling inside her. "I don't belong to you, Brick. You can't protect me from them by chaining me to you. You're just dragging me deeper into your world." Brick stepped closer, his eyes boring into hers with dangerous intensity. "Maybe, but better my chains than their knives." Her chest rose and fell rapidly, torn between fury and helplessness. Brick reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face, his touch surprisingly gentle, though his voice remained hard. "Tomorrow night, Amy. Be ready. From then on, there will be no turning back." And in that moment, as the city lights burned bright behind him, Amy realized the truth. Her life was no longer her own. The king of North Hill had claimed her, and the world was about to witness it. The night of the gala arrived like a storm dressed in silk and diamonds. Amy stood before the mirror once again, though this time she hardly recognized the woman staring back. The dress Brick had sent clung to her frame like it was woven from shadow itself. A gown of midnight satin, cut low at the back, with a slit that promised more than she was willing to give. Around her neck, a necklace of black diamonds glittered like shards of night. She touched it lightly, her fingers trembling. How many women had worn his gifts before her? She didn't know. All she knew was that it felt heavy, like chains disguised as jewels. Behind her, Sarah gasped softly. "You look breathtaking." Amy managed a thin smile, though her heart thundered in her chest. Breathtaking or trapped? Sarah shook her head, adjusting the dress at Amy's shoulder. "Both. But maybe that's what power looks like." Amy wanted to argue, but the sound of an approaching car silenced her. Moments later, she was escorted into Brick's world again. The black sedan purred like a beast as it carried her through the glowing city streets. Brick sat beside her, dressed in a suit as dark as midnight, his presence as suffocating as it was magnetic. He glanced at her once, his eyes lingering. "Perfect," he murmured. Amy clenched her jaw. "You make it sound like I'm your trophy." His lips curved faintly, though his gaze remained fixed on the road ahead. "Not a trophy. A statement." Her brow furrowed. "And what exactly are you trying to say?" He leaned closer, his voice low, intimate. "That I own what no one else could ever keep." Her breath caught, but she turned away, staring out the window. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the North Hill Hotel, a palace of glass and light perched above the city like a beacon. By the time Amy and Brick arrived, the place was already alive with music, laughter, and the clink of crystal. Cameras flashed as they stepped out of the car. Amy froze, blinded by the storm of attention. But Brick's hand slid to her back, firm and commanding, guiding her forward as though she were born to this stage. "Smile," he murmured. "You're standing beside a king." Her lips tightened, but she forced a faint smile. For her children, she told herself. For survival. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, their golden light pouring over gowns of silk and suits stitched in power. Men and women turned as Brick entered, their conversations pausing, their eyes following. And then they saw Amy, saw the necklace, the gown, the way Brick kept her close, and the whispers began. Brick leaned down, his lips grazing her ear. They're trying to guess who you are. They'll spend the whole night chasing answers. Let them choke on their curiosity. Amy's skin prickled, but she lifted her chin, refusing to cower. The night unfolded in a haze of champagne and veiled glances. Powerful men shook Brick's hand. Women eyed Amy with envy and suspicion. But beneath the glitter, danger pulsed. Amy felt it in the air, a current of malice hidden behind polite smiles. And then she saw them, Callan and Joan. They entered together, dressed in elegance, their presence as sharp as knives. Joan's lips curved in a knowing smile as her eyes landed on Amy, while Callan's gaze was colder, darker, filled with calculation. Amy's stomach twisted. She reached instinctively for Brick, but stopped herself, her fingers curling into her palm instead. Brick noticed anyway. His hand slid over hers, his grip firm. "Don't flinch," he whispered. "If they smell fear, they'll devour you." Joan was the first to approach, her laughter tinkling like poisoned glass. "Brick," she purred, pressing a kiss to his cheek before turning her gaze on Amy. "And who is this vision you've brought with you?" Amy opened her mouth, but Brick spoke first. "My wife." The word struck like a thunderclap. Conversations around them faltered, heads turned, and a wave of shock rippled through the room. Joan's eyes narrowed, though her smile never faltered. "Wife." She let the word drip with disbelief. "Funny. I don't recall hearing about a wedding." Brick's expression hardened. "You weren't invited." A flicker of anger passed through Joan's eyes, but she quickly masked it, tilting her head as though amused. "How delightful." She turned to Amy, her gaze sharp. "I suppose congratulations are in order." Amy forced a polite nod, though her hands trembled. "Thank you." Callan finally stepped forward, his voice smooth, controlled. "Brick, you never fail to surprise. And you, Mrs. Brick." His eyes lingered on her in a way that made her skin crawl. "You must tell us how you managed to capture the King of North Hill. That is quite the accomplishment." Amy's throat tightened, but before she could answer, Brick's arms slid around her waist, pulling her against him. His voice was low, dangerous. "She didn't capture me, claimed her. Remember that." The tension between them hung heavy, a silent war cloaked in smiles. And Amy realized, with a sinking heart, that she was not merely attending a gala. She was standing in the middle of a battlefield. Hours passed, each moment heavier than the last. Amy played her role, smiling, nodding, speaking when spoken to. But beneath her calm mask, dread coiled tighter and tighter. When the orchestra began a slow waltz, Brick led her to the dance floor. His hand rested firmly at her back, guiding her with effortless command. "You're trembling," he murmured as they moved. "I'm terrified," she admitted, her voice low. "Good." His eyes burned into hers. "Fear sharpens you, makes you stronger. Or it breaks me," she whispered. He leaned closer, his lips brushing her ear. "Then I'll be the one to hold the pieces together." Her heart pounded wildly. She wanted to hate him, wanted to break free, but part of her clung to the dangerous comfort in his words. But the night's illusion shattered when chaos erupted. A waiter stumbled across the floor, his tray crashing to the ground with a sharp clatter. Guests gasped, turning, but Brick's eyes narrowed, sharp and calculating. "That's no waiter," he muttered. Before Amy could react, the man lunged. A blade gleamed in his hand, aimed straight for Brick. Amy gasped, frozen, but Brick moved with lethal precision, catching the man's wrist mid-strike. The room erupted in screams as security swarmed, tackling the assailant to the ground. The blade clattered across the floor, sliding to a stop near Amy's feet. Her breath hitched as she stared at it, realizing just how close death had come. Brick pulled her against him, shielding her with his body. His voice was calm, deadly. And so it begins. Amy clung to him, her heart racing, her world unraveling. For the first time, she understood the full weight of his words. She wasn't just part of his world now. She was a target in it. The ballroom had been reduced to chaos. Screams echoed against the marble walls, crystal glasses shattered under panicked feet, and the once glittering chandeliers trembled with the force of the stampede. Guests scattered in every direction, their gowns and tuxedos flashing like fragments of torn illusions. But in the eye of the storm, Brick remained motionless, an unmoving pillar of authority, holding Amy tight against him. His grip was unyielding, his body a shield between her and the madness. "Stay still," he commanded, his voice cutting through the panic like steel through silk. Amy's breath came ragged, her eyes locked on the knife that still gleamed on the floor where it had fallen, just inches away. A single step, and it could have found its way into Brick's chest or hers. She shivered. What kind of life have I stepped into? Brick raised his head slowly, his gaze sweeping over the room. The assailant, pinned beneath the weight of his men, still thrashed like a cornered animal. But Brick's eyes were not on him. They were already searching the shadows, calculating, watching. "Take him alive," Brick ordered coldly. "I want answers before dawn." The guards dragged the man out, his muffled curses echoing like the last cries of a doomed man. The music had died, the dance had ended, but Brick's world pulsed with danger, louder than any orchestra. Amy's knees buckled. "Someone just tried to kill you." No, Brick's gaze finally fell to her, sharp and unyielding. "They tried to kill us." Hours later, the ballroom was silent, stripped of its glamour. The guests had fled, whispers trailing behind them like smoke. But Brick remained, standing tall, surveying the wreckage as though it were nothing more than another battle to be logged and forgotten. Amy sat in a velvet chair, her gown torn slightly at the hem from the chaos, her mind spinning. "Do you see now?" Brick asked suddenly, his voice low, deliberate. "Do you understand the cost of walking beside me?" She lifted her gaze to him. "You're saying this happens often?" "Not often," he said, his jaw tightening. "But often enough." Her stomach twisted. "Then why drag me into it? Why claim me as your wife in front of all those people? You just made me a target." Brick turned slowly, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "Because the moment you touched me in that club, you chose this path. I didn't put you here. You did." Amy flinched. Had she? She remembered the way she had grabbed his hand that night, desperate to shield herself from Callan and Joan's ridicule. She hadn't known who he was then. She hadn't known she was putting her neck in the lion's jaws. Her voice cracked. "I didn't choose danger. I didn't choose death following me at every turn." Brick stepped closer, crouching before her. His hand reached up, cupping her chin with surprising gentleness. His eyes, though, were still fire. "You chose survival," he whispered, "and survival is never gentle." The car ride back was silent. Amy sat pressed against the leather seat, her reflection in the tinted glass staring back at her with wide, frightened eyes. Beside her, Brick worked on his phone, his thumb moving swiftly as he issued orders she couldn't hear. His aura filled the car, even in silence. She closed her eyes, her thoughts spiraling. What if the attacker had succeeded? What would have become of me? Of my children? The thought of her 6 little ones waiting at home almost broke her. They were her hidden truth, her fragile world. She had kept them a secret for years, shielding them from the eyes of men like Brick and Callan. But now she feared the walls were cracking. If Brick knew, her eyes flicked to him. He hadn't asked yet. He hadn't pried. But she saw the suspicion in his gaze when he looked at her, the sharpness of a man who missed nothing. And she knew. It was only a matter of time. When they arrived at his penthouse, Brick dismissed his guards with a flick of his hand. The door shut behind them with a soft click that sounded more like a lock on her freedom than safety. Amy hesitated by the window, staring at the city lights below, trying to steady her breathing. Brick poured a glass of whiskey, his movements slow, precise, controlled. "You're shaking," he said, handing her the glass. She didn't take it. I don't drink. He set it down on the table, unbothered. Then talk. About what? She asked warily. About why a woman with your fire, your lies, and your desperation grabbed my hand in that club. About why, when I look at you, I see more secrets than truths. Amy's heart hammered. What do you want from me, Brick? His eyes narrowed, and he stepped closer, his voice dropping. The truth. All of it. Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him, wanted to scream about her children, about the years of struggle, about the betrayals she had endured. But she couldn't. Not yet. Because she didn't know what kind of man Brick would be when he discovered she was not just a woman caught in his world, but a mother whose children carried bloodlines others might kill for. So she lied again. There's nothing to tell. Brick studied her for a long moment, then leaned close, so close she could feel his breath on her cheek. Lies have a scent, Amy, and yours are intoxicating. Her knees went weak, her throat dry. She didn't know if it was fear or something far more dangerous coursing through her veins. That night, sleep evaded her. She lay in the vast bed Brick had claimed for them, her body taut, her mind restless. Beside her, he slept or pretended to. His breathing was calm, steady, like the ocean before a storm. Amy turned on her side, her thoughts drifting back to her children, to the secret house where Sarah watched over them. She pictured their small faces, their laughter, their little hands reaching for her. I can't let him find out. Not yet. Not like this. But as her eyes closed, a voice echoed in her mind. Brick's voice. You chose survival, and survival is never gentle. She shivered beneath the weight of those words, realizing that the deeper she walked into Brick's world, the harder it would be to keep her own world hidden. And somewhere in the city's shadows, she knew Callan and Joan were watching, waiting, plotting. The knife in the ballroom had been just the beginning.